Hey guys, it's Ruben from Dubb, and we're going to try something a little bit new today. I'm actually pushing the boundaries, I'm pushing the limits, I'm doing a couple of things that I have not done yet before, so I apologize if there's any technical difficulties in this live streaming session. We have Diane Darling, keynote speaker, thought leader, overall just amazing person. I've learned a lot from her. We're going to get into a really interesting topic, which is how to create dynamic screen tutorial videos. And if anyone has ever created a masterclass or a video, like a demo, a walkthrough, a slideshow, anything like that, this is going to be relevant for you. We're also going to bookend this piece on imposter syndrome. And this is a topic that Diane Darling knows a lot about, actually, because she speaks about it. In fact, she spoke at the Harvard Business School very recently and had some very positive feedback. So she's going to kind of help us to get over feeling like, you know what, on video and on camera and on social media. So without any further ado, let's get into this. If you do have comments, please leave them. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You just saw a little hello there. Thanks. Hello right back at you. Again, comments, questions, anything that's going on, just throw them in the comments. We will actually address them live in this broadcast. And then the other thing is that if you're tuning in on the recorded replay of this video here, thanks again for tuning in. You can kind of forward back and forth. We did include an agenda in the description, so we're going to kind of follow that cadence more or less. And once again, comments are welcomed. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share. Let's get into this. The problem with creating screen videos and tutorial videos is that they require a lot of production value, okay? They require a lot of work, okay? What typically happens is that in a masterclass situation, you have a multiple camera environment where you have a camera on a subject, on the teacher in this case, and then that footage then goes back into an editing situation, which requires a lot of production value, a lot of editing, okay? A lot of clipping, a lot of trimming, a lot of B-roll footage. It could take weeks, if not months, to get something like that done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of guide you guys on a three option strategy on creating screen videos or tutorial videos or really highly produced masterclass videos, really, that you can use for online summits or on Udemy, on YouTube, sending directly to people. So the first option is the first class approach, okay? The first class approach it's expensive and it takes time, okay? It requires that you get a camera on yourself in a studio environment with some lights. Speaking of studio environment, I'm in a studio environment right now, and I've kind of really streamlined the process. Here's what it looks like for me. Hey, Alexa, turn the studio on. So that's just like an instant thing for me. I'm a little bit lazy. I like to have pretty easy things. So I don't necessarily care too much for the highly produced studio situation. I prefer this for something a lot more minimalist. Anyways, first class approach is it requires a videographer, requires one or two cameras, and then it requires that post-production process to go and add B-roll footage and audio clips and different types of things that you can add to that video. Okay, that's first class. The second approach is we're going to call it business class, obviously. And business class is really where you have a two-stream situation. So you have a camera on yourself, and then you have a screen recording that's happening simultaneously. Okay, so what I recommend for folks to use is a program like QuickTime, Screencast-O-Matic I've heard people use, or the Dubb desktop app. A lot of people don't know that Dubb has a desktop app. It's very new. So Dan, I don't know if you knew about it, but it's very new.
I do now. I didn't until today. I am jazzed to know because I love screencast apps.
Okay, cool. So I'll actually put the URL for that right here. And what that's going to allow you to do is to have an app that's installed on your Mac or PC, and then to actually record in real time using that. So I'm going to give a little bit of a demo on that as well. Now, there is a technological constraint that I have here, which is that I don't want to show what's in my browser. I want to show what's on my monitor. So the way that I've solved that is that I have a secondary camera that's in front of my monitor. It's a little bit of a hack, and you can take a look right there. And that's just a screen recording of my MacBook here. Okay, so it's a little bit of a hack, but it will show you my entire screen. Hopefully that works out just fine. Okay, So in this business model, we have this business class model, we have a screen recording that's happening, but then we're also simultaneously recording what's on our screen, okay? Again, we can use a simple camera setup like this to record yourself. This is an iPhone 10, just a default iPhone 10 with the native mic. I'm not using anything special. Or you can use a DSLR, or you can use something else. Thanks so much for the like and the love, guys. Really appreciate it. Nice to see a bunch of you guys participating in this video. I know it's a really hot topic, so thanks again for tuning in here. So simple camera. Look, you guys, iPhones and Androids, they have amazing cameras. You know, the cameras that we have on our devices in our pockets are what Hollywood dreamed of having 10 years ago. So these are high definition cameras. We don't need to go out and run and buy a DSLR with a fancy mic. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that most of the people that watch these videos are watching them on small devices or lower resolution devices. So let's not worry too much about the tech, because that's just going to be a whole rabbit hole that you have to get into. So once again, I have an iPhone here that's doing this. And the idea of these two streams is to have a recording of your screen and then a recording of yourself. Okay. Now with these two streams, you can then go back into a video editor, into Adobe Premiere, into Filmora, into iMovie, into Windows Movie Maker, into InVideo, into any of these. There's dozens of these video editors out there. You can take these two files and then you can put them in, and then you can strategically cut out parts that need to either show you as the speaker, as the teacher, or the screen, which can be a PowerPoint, a Google Slides, images, a screen share, whatever it is. Okay. The great thing about doing the two-stream approach is that you can edit in between your ideas, your thoughts, okay? You can edit in between those. And by having the ability to edit in between those, you can do what we call topic bursts. Actually, Owen Video talks about this as well, this idea of bursting. And, the idea of this is basically the ability to, I should say, the practice of saying a main point and then taking a pause and then going on to the next one, okay? So what this allows you to do, again, is to get your main points and then know that you're going to have the ability to cut in between those. So topic one, all right, let's refresh. Let's do a reboot here. Topic two, refresh, reboot, and so on and so forth. Then when you go into your video editor, you can just cut those key moments out. When you have your screen video and when you have your camera video right on top of each other, you can make those cuts within your editor at the same time, okay? So that's the business class approach. Now, the coach class approach, which I think is a lot more accessible to all of us, it's actually really simple, okay? And it's using the Dubb desktop app. Now, if you guys don't already know about the Dubb desktop app, just grab it. It's free right now. Install it on Mac or PC. It's an early version. Feedback is most welcomed. We are iterating that very, very quickly. Okay. So in the Dubb desktop app, what it's going to allow you to do is a couple of things. And I have to give a shout out here to my friend Tights Maze, who is a great user of Dubb. He's an enterprise user of Dubb over at Molasses, and he's been such a great evangelist for us on really getting our technology out there and how it can help people to share visual stories and help, frankly, grow revenue and sales. So thanks again, Tice, for that. That was sort of an inspiration for a lot of these features. So on the Dubb desktop app, I'm going to go ahead and demo. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump over to my monitor feed here. Okay, so here we have my monitor. And what I'd like to show here is the Dubb desktop app. So this Dubb desktop app right here, it's very simple, okay? Right now it's in the top tray. When you click the record button, what happens is the following, okay? You get the ability to display your webcam, okay? So by toggling this switch on and off, you can display your webcam, okay? So your webcam is going to display right here on the left side of the screen. You can really move this anywhere you want. Okay, but what's more important is that you have the ability to pause the video. Okay, so with this button right here, you can pause the video. And when you pause that video, what you're doing is you're effectively giving yourself just a couple of minutes to breathe and to figure out your next point. So hit that pause button and release yourself of that anxiety, because I know exactly what that anxiety feels like. You've got the red button on you, the camera's hot, you don't know what to say, you start stumbling your words, you start over talking, kind of like what I'm doing right now. Gone are the days where you're gonna have to deal with that, okay? So hit pause and then burst into your next topic. Now, I gotta say that part of the pre-production process is understanding what your outline is gonna be, getting your 10 points, okay? So that when you do these bursts, that you are prepared and you know that I'm gonna show a slide, I'm gonna show my screen, I'm gonna show an image, and so on and so forth. So get yourself prepared. 10 minutes of pre-production and outlining is going to save, potentially hours of work during this process, because when you start to make mistakes, then you have to do stuff over again, and not to mention the morale and how kind of harmful it is to you. So hit play, hit pause. The other thing is you can expand the webcam size. So this is just going to be a full screen of my webcam, okay? And the reason why this is valuable is because I can give the human element. I can say, hey guys, welcome to my masterclass. This is Ruben from Dubb. Today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome with Diane Darling. You can give that really punchy, really powerful, really human delivery of your content, and then when you want to go into something that's more screen-based or visual-based or slide-based, you can then hit pause and then jump into that. Now, what you're effectively doing by hitting play and pause is you're compiling a real-time video, okay? There's no more editing. There's no more need to go back and have a whole post-production process on this. You've created the video, okay? What I also recommend to people to do is that include your outro video in the video itself. I'll actually do one right now. I'm just going to double click on this image right here, and I'm going to have this screen right here. And now what I can do is I can full screen this, and in my edit, all I have to do is just include this. So I'll just full screen this right here, and then boom, I have an outro image or graphic. I don't need to go back in and add a logo. I don't need to go back in and add this or add any production value. So include your assets, include your graphics into the actual real-time edit, because it will save you a ton of time. First class, business class, coach class. You guys, thanks so much for listening. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the support. Once again, like, comment, and subscribe. Throw your comments in below. We will go back and actually respond to all the comments. So if you do have some, please add those. So without further ado, I'd like to give the mic and the camera over to Diane Darling, who's going to teach us on how to kind of deal with imposter syndrome, and hopefully how to deal with really dry throat after doing a 10-minute video.
Ruben, thank you. So let's share the screen here, Ruben, you and I, get yourself some water. I want to just jump back a little bit and share that. So the inspiration for the video that Ruben just did was me saying to him, it is so overwhelming for me to put together a video. And I had spoke at Harvard Business School at a conference of almost 1,000 people. And people afterwards had lots of questions. Where can I get more research? Where can I get more information? I'm not a social scientist. I am not a psychologist, but I speak a lot about different things. I'm a very good explainer. I teach communication skills, how to interact with people. And I was asked to be on this panel. I had to say that morning when I was driving into Harvard Business School, and I'm driving into the parking lot, and I'm like, I have imposter syndrome, because I am here pulling into this school when I do not have a business degree, certainly not one from a prestigious school like that. And so part of it was, it was a very real experience for me to experience that. And so in the course of the conversation, when I was on the panel, I talked about the roommates I have in my head. I have one roommate named imposter syndrome. I have another roommate named inner critic, and I have a third roommate named self-love. And so I shared a lot of that on the panel, that I have chosen to live with these people. I have not chosen to argue with them or try and get them out of my life. So for the imposter syndrome, I look at, where does that come from? In some cases, it comes from external situations. In some cases, it comes from internal, but a lot of it is external. And so part of it is, how can I engage that person in a conversation? And so the imposter syndrome just is. and to not argue with it and not fight with it so much. Instead, sit down and say, so why are you feeling like you don't belong? You have been invited. I'm saying this to myself. I have been invited to speak on a panel. And no one in that audience is going to say, why are you here? What makes you think you belong here? One, that's not going to happen. And if it does happen, they're a jerk. So part of it is to step back and have an authentic, real conversation with that imposter syndrome. And the twin of imposter syndrome is the inner critic. They're twins, in my opinion. They sound alike. They're actually different people. They're actually different, roommates, but they look a lot alike. They sound a lot alike. And at times you want to say, so what is the voice in my head that says I don't belong versus what is the fear that someone else is going to say I don't belong? So it was interesting to experience this very real time. About a month ago, I was teaching at Yale Law School. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I certainly would never have made it to Yale Law School. And I'm walking in there thinking, why, what am I doing here? And then the students started asking me questions. And then a professor asked me a question. And then a lawyer who was visiting there said, hey, can I ask you a question and get your expertise? So part of it in some cases is to accept the fact that there's going to be places where, quote, we don't belong. There's going to be, quote, places when you're going to be with people who don't look like you, have your same socioeconomic situation, maybe have your same languages, but that doesn't mean you don't have something to contribute. So for imposter syndrome, that's a very important part of this. The other roommate I mentioned briefly is self-love. I saw a video recently of Elizabeth Gilbert who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she mentioned the story about how, like many of us, we long to hear we're loved. We're long to hear approval. And she came to accept the fact that she was never going to hear from anybody else enough how great she was. So she now writes herself a love letter. I think she's working on this every day, which is remarkable. And I kind of have one of my self-love roommates. This person has a big sense of humor. I have a sense of humor, and I see humor in many things. And so instead of the self-love SL, I call it SNL, Saturday Night Live. I have a little bit of fun with it. And so I think it's important to, one, have a sense of humor, but two, also really think about how you can take care of yourself and what does that look like. It is unlikely we're going to hear from other people enough about how wonderful we want to hear we are. It's also unlikely that they're going to say the things we'd like to hear. So I invite you to write down a love letter to yourself, and I invite you to do also something else. I have a picture of myself when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And on occasions, I'll put that picture on the desk with me, and I will have a conversation with her. And I will imagine that she is saying all of the mean things to me that I am saying to myself. And I wonder why I would put up with that person. So one, challenge that person and say, so why are you such a bully? And two, accept the fact that putting a lot of energy into fighting this person isn't a good use of amount of your time. Accept the fact that they are in your life, in my humble opinion, is a solution. And also thinking about how you can maybe marginalize them, squish them down a little bit, flick them away. That was one of the other recommendations from one of the other people on the panel. She said, imagine it's a little icon and you just squish it right down and you say, go away, I'm done with you. If that works for you, that's fine. I find that the inner critic and imposter syndrome just live with us. And the more we can just simply say, thank you for that thought, move on, I'm going to go to the next thought, it's going to be helpful. So when I was talking with Ruben before we decided to put on this video, I mentioned to him that I'm working on videos, and the imposter syndrome kicks in because he is from Hollywood, he has a production team, I'm here by myself, I'm trying to do it all on my own. I overthink it, I overanalyze it, and there's the altruistic part of this, which I know my information can be helpful to other people, and I feel that it's important for me to share that. The less altruistic part of me is like, I want to create some online courses and earn money when I am not on a stage, because right now I'm not on a stage all the time. And why not kind of hang out for the weekend and maybe get a massage and maybe, have a little bit of downtime and then take a look and realize, hey, I'm earning money online because the information I'm providing is useful, because it's not realistic for everybody to come and see me in person. So I had said to Ruben, can you help me out with my imposter syndrome or my overwhelm or my overthinking, and make this less complicated? So I just want to do a shout out to Ruben. I've been a fan of Dubb for a long, long time. I use it in many different ways. I'll show you a couple of funny ways. Is I was in a car accident and I pulled out the camera and I videoed where the accident, not just pictures, but I videoed so I could show the trajectory of where the cars got hit. I uploaded that video to Dubb, and then I was able to share that with the insurance agency, who was able to see kind of what had happened. I was not at fault, but the video showed it. Another fun way I use Dubb, I use it for business, but another fun way I use it is I'm a dog sitter, because I have a lot of friends who have dogs. I travel too much for a dog, and people are in far-flung places, and so I can do a fun little video of the dog. I upload it to Dog, and when they're traveling, the video does not take up a gargantuan amount of power on their phone, and they can see the video of that. And most recently, my last name is Darling, and on occasions I leverage it mainly on Valentine's Day. And so this last year for Valentine's Day, I took a picture of myself while I was with the dog and said, I'm receiving a little bit of love from the pup. I encourage you to do the same thing. I popped it up to Dubb, and it was just so much fun to see how many people embrace the idea of, one, having a little bit of fun, me making fun of myself and enjoying my name, Darling. I did not like it as a kid. I've learned to tolerate it, certainly enjoy it now. But the other part about it was I could see how long I talked, and maybe I needed to make my video shorter. A minute was maybe a little too long for a little bit of a video. My next challenge, and this is part of why I'm happy to talk to Ruben, is I want to make videos saying, Marilyn, I see you're up here on Facebook. Thank you so much. If you'd like to have me as a speaker, I can have a video just for Marilyn and say, here's how I think I can help your organization succeed. Here's a talk I'd like to do. I just got booked this morning to speak in 9 days at the International Women's Day at a conference. I'm going to be doing a keynote. That came through, and I'd love to do a video today and say thank you, but I know I'm going to overthink it. I'm going to complicate it and blah, blah, blah. And so part of that was the inspiration, and I want to just say hats off to Ruben, who makes himself accessible for people like me who want to do video, but we don't have, I don't live in LA, 2, I don't have a team. And it's been great to learn how I can do this without overthinking it. And one of the cousins that also live in my life is perfectionism and procrastination, and they're cousins. And because every time I'm trying to get something done, I want to do it perfectly, which kicks in procrastination, and they feed on each other. So part of the challenge is to get over that. But it's also really important, and this is where I've been a nudge to Ruben. I bug him, and I stalked him when I was in LA and actually went to the office to make him meet with me. Make the production easy. Help me figure out what the production is. And when people say it's simple because you know what you're doing. It's not simple when you don't know what you're doing. So thank you, Ruben, for having me here and hearing that out.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That was great to understand how we can kind of overcome imposter syndrome. There's a couple of things that I've kind of learned in that. Number one is that we don't need to be experts at anything. There's no such thing as an expert. Everyone is a student. Even the people that come off as experts and that are on that stage every day, and we read about them in books and stuff, they're not experts. The most important thing is our perspective on things and how we interpret certain things. And once we kind of lean into this idea that this is how we perceive something, and this is our take on something, and this is how something makes us feel, or this is what we thought of when we saw that thing, all of a sudden we become an individual, and we're not being an imposter, we're not being fake. None of that is happening. All that's happening is that we're just sharing our stories. So it really goes down to storytelling, And then I think the second thing is being prepared. Being prepared helps you to overcome this. Diane, I don't know if you can see the comment. We've got Marilyn to watch here. Marilyn is awesome. Marilyn, thank you so much for the support. Let me just read this comment here. Brilliant ideas, Dan. I love finding creative ways to use Dubb. I'm also seeing SaaS businesses using Dubb for their product reviews. Interesting. Okay, cool. That's a cool use case. Also, yeah.
So one thing you were saying about being prepared, I think that, so I went for my first book, The Networking Survival Guide. I got amazing interviews. I interviewed the founder of the TED conferences. I interviewed Bob Metcalf, who invented Ethernet. I interviewed Esther Dyson. I really got amazing interviews. And a lot of that was because I would say, who do you know? Who do you know? And I would let that person make the introduction for me. When I interviewed Richard Saul Wurman, who is the founder of the TED conferences and has since sold it, and TEDx didn't exist under him, that came out of the next phase. But he said what was interesting was that you had these conferences and he wanted it to be like a conversation. He didn't want it to be like a talk down. He wanted it to have the person on the stage. At the time, I don't even think he allowed a PowerPoint. And the whole idea of it was that he wanted people to feel that sense of engagement in that conversation that made you feel very relaxed. So that was one thing I thought that was very interesting, was you could have that preparedness, but you could also have that sense of openness and that sense of welcome, which is one thing that I think is very important for me on how I come across both on stage, and it's something important for me to come across on video. When I interviewed Bob Metcalf, he was preparing for a speech in front of MIT students. It's where he went to school. I think he's on the board of trustees. And he was going up and down the stairs, practicing the opening lines of his speech the next day. And I said, so tell me more about this exercise. And he was heavy at the time. He since has lost weight. But he said, I want to be prepared. And he said he called this rehearsed spontaneity. And I love that phrase. It's rehearsed spontaneity. And so he also said, I'm going to be nervous. And I'm like, why are you going to be nervous? You're a trustee. You know these people. And he said, but I want to do a good job. It's normal nerves. It's good nerves. So I think this whole part of why I like to think about imposter syndrome as a roommate is to not fight it. Because in some cases, it makes me better. It makes me learn. It makes me be prepared a little bit more. But when he was doing the rehearsed spontaneity and he was nervous, he said, well, I'm going to be revved. So he said going up and down the stairs gave him that same rev feeling like before you and I went on camera, we were doing squats. Your heart gets revved.
Yeah.
So part of it was that physical, get that stuff out of you. But part of it is you are revved when you go on camera. So it's why a plane doesn't go right in the air. It has a runway, it goes. So before things like that happen, get yourself going for a while. But so then when you take off, you have that thrust and then you have that energy.
That's so true. That's so true. Well, I hope that this is a great catalyst for people. We went into a couple of topics here, most of which are around storytelling, and how to really get ourselves comfortable in telling our stories in a visual way, but also in a human way. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Diane Darling, you can find her on LinkedIn, Diane Darling. @Diane Darling is your social username, and then your website is dianedarling.com. I know
it is. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then also, Diane has some books. And in a future cast like this, we're going to talk about how I'm going to launch my book, which is 99% done.
I'm happy to help you out. I love that.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.